Pruitt. So plenty of onboard cameras to show you here today. Should make for one exciting afternoon. Remember, the onboard cameras last year captured the tire exploding on Robbie Gordon's car live right as it was happening. Those onboard cameras are terrific. Look at the crowd, just gigantic here today. In the pits, the teams are all ready as they are now on the pace lap. And Bobby, the heat here today, heard it mentioned several times, it'll affect the drivers, but it'll affect those machines much, much more. What about the tires with that surface temperature?
Paul, that's what I was just poking you for. I wanted to tell you the tires are going to take the most views of everything today other than the guys in the pit. The tires, remember, it's the sun shining on the track. That's what causes the top surface to get really hot, and that's the part that affects the tires.
All right, it's rows of three here for the Michigan 500. Pole sitter, rookie, first time on an oval, Parker Johnstone. Awesome responsibility, but he is a veteran racer, and everyone seems to have good confidence in him. The pace picks up as they come off of turn 4. We watch for the green flag. Parker lags back just a bit, and it's a non-start. They'll start counting laps. But what they're really looking for is to see the pole sitter cross the line first, and Jacques Villeneuve looked like he was cruising right up there.
Yeah, Villeneuve was sneaking up on that. Now, they'll only let him do this the next time. If he does that again, they'll just put him to the back of the pack. So they'll be watching for that. Wally Dallenbeck, that's not too far from us here, looking at the same thing we are.
Jim Swintal, the starter for the IndyCar, is very conscientious about those starts. Has a long conversation with the front row, tells them where he will most likely go green and what he would like to see the alignment. And one thing is he always wants to see that pole car head for the line first.
Another thing to realize is it's not important who leads the first turn of the first lap of this. This really is a long race at 500 miles.
All right, off the fourth turn again. Will they start him this time? Still straggled a bit, but at least Parker Johnstone is out in front. But
no,
says, nope, not going to do it like that.
What was Fabi doing down there?
Well, Sam, that was that Johnstone just really jumped it. Now I thought maybe he hadn't done right before. Remember, this is the first time that he's ever been on an oval or on the pole.
But why, Bobby, did Fabi, and you'll see it here.
Because he was way ahead of him. And why not get behind? If they do throw the green, he needs to pick up a draft so he can stay with him so the other guys don't pass him instead.
Now remember, because of fuel, these laps under the yellow do in fact count. So if we get green this time, it'll actually be at the conclusion of the second lap. I'm not so sure, Bobby, you can really hang that on Parker when other guys are maneuvering quite the way they are. Here we come. Turn number 4, the move again. Front row kind of a line, and again Teo Fabi drops down, but this time it's going to go green. And here we go, 4, 5 wide into the first turn. Parker Johnstone leads them through one. Teo Fabi runs up high. Michael Andretti drops into third. Villeneuve fourth. Jimmy Vasser is fifth. They're still spread out fairly wide coming onto the backstretch.
Remember, there goes Fabi down the inside trying Parker Johnstone. Remember that most of the practice laps here have been done with the cars running by themselves. This is the first time they've been bunched together, Paul.
Coming for the line, Parker Johnstone leads the first lap of racing. He'll be scored with 3 laps into the record book. Teo Fabi in second place, then Michael, then Jacques Villeneuve, then Jimmy Vasser. Mauricio Gugelmin is 6th, followed by Paul Tracy, Brian Herter, Andrew Ribeiro, and Danny Sullivan.
Now, the important thing for all of these guys, what they're doing right now is trying to see what will win. They've never had this many cars, as you mentioned, on the track at one time. So they're trying to see how the drafting and how the guys alongside them are affecting their race cars.
Right now, there is no prevailing breeze. You can see the trees at the top of the screen. Everything is dead calm.
Jimmy Vasser runs in 5th place, chasing Jacques Villeneuve. They've strung out as they all start to look for racing room. And I think Bobby trying to find out what kind of grooves are available out there.
Yes, and they're going to find out that this track, being all new, the groove is wherever you want it to be. As we saw in the IROC race yesterday, you can just run on the bottom or you can run on the top. And that's what these guys are going to figure out by the time they run 500 miles. As we saw Parker Johnstone a little while ago, he was absolutely right down on the white line and still was leading.
Looking back now to the battle, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Villeneuve, Vasser, Paul Tracy. Tracy closing up on Vasser.
You see Villeneuve there in the blue car just coming by. It's not unusual for him not to lead. Remember, he has a commanding lead in the championship, but he rarely leads the races from the beginning. He has a very cautious approach to the first laps.
Paul Tracy on the charge, closing on Jimmy Vasser.
It's amazing, Paul. I talked to a lot of the drivers the last couple of days and the team owners, and they realize that often there are not very many cars finished.
Whoa, car into the wall. That's Carlos Guerrero. So we're yellow. By the way, Eliseo Salazar jumped up 5 positions in the first couple of laps.
And by the way, look at the extent of the damage. This track, when it strikes big. That car's torn up bad.
Keeping an eye on Guerrero to make sure he is all right as well. Fairly still in the cockpit as Parker Johnstone slows down and comes by. The IndyCar safety crews are already there, each a specialist in either extrication or medical or fire.
Now, he obviously went into the turn backwards. Somehow or another, there was a spin. You can see that's the left side. Took all the brunt of the damage. The tire and the wheel suspension. That piece on the right is the right rear hub assembly. The uprights and all of that together, separated from the wheel. And
he's okay. There's some good. Well, he's at least capable of climbing out.
Which Robbie Gordon 2 days ago was not. So it's good to see movement.
So as Carlos Guerrero steps over the debris of his wrecked race car, one Lola is junk right now, and we have our first racing yellow of the day on lap 6. Still under yellow at Michigan, floating overhead, one of America's most enduring corporate symbols, the Goodyear blimp. The Spirit of Akron is providing us with an aerial view of the track and the surrounding Irish Hills of Michigan, a truly beautiful area. The yellow is out because of the accident involving Carlos Guerrero. He climbed out of the car. We'll update his condition here shortly. PPG, the major sponsor of the IndyCar World Series, prominently displays its pace car team at each race. Its fleet of 30 cars are used beyond just entertainment.
Well, the pace car team is made up of 14 professional female drivers who race in other circuits, and they drive our special PPG pace cars, of which there are about 30 in the fleet right now. And the pace car program was designed basically for 3 reasons. First of all, to help the OEM manufacturers showcase their new models and hopefully build sales of those models in the showrooms. Secondly, PPG uses it to showcase new colors that may be 3 and 4 years out and see what the public's acceptance of those new colors are. And also, we use the actual paint on the cars themselves for durability tests. We look at the stone chips and bruises and sun exposure, that sort of thing. And then finally, we use the cars for customer entertainment. If you're a PPG customer, you get to go on a pace car ride, which is something the typical race fan doesn't get to do.
PPG and the PPG pace car, Johnny Rutherford at the wheel, a long-term sponsor of the Indy cars. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. Yellow flag on the nose of Stefan Johansson's car. Tonight on ABC, it's an hour of America's Funniest Home Videos, followed by Lois and Clark, and then Rebecca De Mornay, Jill Eikenberry, Jason Robards, and Peter Gallagher star in an ABC miniseries event, An Inconvenient Woman. All tonight here on ABC. So still yellow here, so we've got some time. Let's go down to Gary Gerould.
Paul, you mentioned at the head of the show there was a very serious incident involving Robbie Gordon on Friday in practice when a failure in a suspension part in the left rear sent him into the wall. A tremendous hit, left him unconscious for several minutes. He, of course, out of the hospital doing well. But because of that accident, it was determined that it was a failure of a part in the suspension. It was on a Reynard chassis, and so Bruce Ashmore and the designers at Reynard immediately tried to make a fix. This is the lower wishbone. This is the piece that was in question. It takes a tremendous stress here at 230 mile per hour speeds on these banks. They cut this piece out. They had a local manufacturer then make this bushing and this top piece here that is 90-ton steel as opposed to 50-ton steel that was used before. Greatly strengthened it. As you can see, there are threads here. Instead of it being welded in, they now bolt this into this particular bushing, weld the bushing to a tube that runs all the way down with spot welds all the way down through this particular arm. It's on the lower left, and you say, why does it absorb all of the tension and the stress when the car leans to the right? Well, as it leans to the right, it pulls on that left side. And at these tremendous downforce and tremendous speeds, you have all of this stress. It led to the failure. It was a high-mileage part. It had 1,700 miles, so they made the fix. A couple of the drivers have that in their cars today. Other people have entirely new pieces trying to preclude what happened to Robbie Gordon. Jack?
Gary, let's try while we've got the luxury of some time for IndyCar engineering for dummies. Now, here's an Indy car without any of its rear wings or front wings. You see the large tires up front here. Well, these large tires, they create an excessive amount of drag. Believe it or not, the drag coefficient on many of the American passenger cars is far less than what is on an Indy car. So now when you're hurtling at speeds of over 220 miles an hour, engineers have to try and adjust the downforce on the car. The more downforce that's created by the front wings and the rear wings, the more drag that it's created and the less speed that you're able to get for the amount of horsepower you have. So what engineers do is they run a knife edge balance. They try to take as much downforce out of the car before a driver can no longer drive it. Why? Because they want the top speed. So when you hear a driver talking about his car being balanced, that means for that particular track, he's got it exactly the way he wants it. The coefficient between downforce and speed is exactly perfect, Paul.
So, with rain tires, no wing, and no nose. Now, I don't think I'd drive that car. They're still trying to clean this track up. We're under yellow after Carlos Guerrero's accident, and we'll be back. Back with just about one lap to go before we go back to green flag racing. Parker Johnstone, leading an IndyCar race for the first time in his career, has now led 15 laps, and good moves. Salazar from 23rd to 20th, Eddie Cheever from 18th to 15th, Paul Tracy from 8th up to 6th, and Andre Ribeiro from 10th up to 8th. So in those first couple of laps of speed, we have seen some action. Now, one thing we're going to be able to do is listen in on the two-way communication with Scott Pruitt. You'll be hearing the voices of Scott Pruitt and perhaps a little clearer that of Jim McGee, the team manager for Patrick Racing.
12 o'clock at the fuel, Scott, 12 o'clock.
That was the voice of McGee. And there is Scott Pruitt on the track. He currently runs 11th. Bobby,
I didn't hear that good enough to get that. It's 12 o'clock. I don't know what he meant.
That's the adjustment of the fuel dial. It's probably adjusted straight up.
All right, we're ready to go green once again.
Green.
And that's how they tell. In case they're not looking ahead, Parker Johnstone takes the lead, but take a look at Teo Fabi as he now begins to close in. He's going to try a low move on Parker. Parker comes across the front and pulls away.
And yeah, what I just wanted to tell you that what it means, the reason they say green, 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 because on a restart, as soon as it goes green, I don't care if they're on the back straightaway, they can start passing. And that's really important.
Boy, take a look at Michael, who's on the fly as he just screams past Teo Fabi and picks up second place.
3 different engines, the Honda engine of Parker Johnstone out front, but you just saw the power of the new Ford Cosworth engine in Michael's car breezed by the more normal engine on Fabi's.
Back on Paul Tracy's car right now. He runs 6th, but he begins to challenge Jimmy Vasser just ahead. That blue car, that's Jacques Villeneuve.
And let's keep in mind, these cars are like flywheels. It takes a while to get the speed up, and that's the reason you see a passing sometimes.
Oh, look at this. The Honda power of Andre Ribeiro really paying off on the backstretch.
Talk about
it. Just cuts right on past Paul Tracy.
Talk about a difference in engine power. Both Hondas are really moving. Here comes Ribeiro setting up another Ford engine. The Ford engine in Vasser's car. Watch him.
Fernandez, Pruitt, and Al Unser Jr. were all able to get past Herta on the restart, and that brings them up into the top 10. Fernandez still on the move there. Back to the fight, Jimmy Vasser, Andre Ribeiro. Fight for 6th place, Bobby.
The Honda will no doubt have more power than the Fords do. It's been running that and showing that here. But it's not passing as easy. You have to remember, it's a flywheel thing here. In order for everybody to get equal like they are now, it takes about 2 to 3 laps to get this flywheel going in full swing. And it's